Once upon a time, on a hot Middle Eastern summer night in 1989, I decided to blaze my way into the world. With my arrival, I gave my mother her new full-time job and, of course, the privilege of being a mother for the very first time. She owes me. However, I wasn't aware that my arrival was badly timed. I should have waited a few more hours until the Israeli curfew on my refugee camp was lifted. Then my mother would have been able to go to the nearest UN health center for my delivery. My grandmother, my super grandmother, managed to get us to the health center, which was so crowded with young men who were injured in clashes with Israeli soldiers. So I was delivered on stairs. This first exposure to the world wasn't exactly what I fancied for 9 months and 4 days. But it's too late now. On top of all this, my grandmother wasn't very happy at the fact that I was a girl, and my mother was very busy fainting. She says I have a big head. My father was away in Jordan working hard to make a living for his family. I was given a name and added to my family's UN registration card, number 28509693. That card allowed me to study in refugee schools, and to this day, it allows me to get a sack of poor quality flour and a few bottles of cooking oil every few months. Sometimes, they give us a treat by adding cans of jam or hummus. Yay! When I was 40 days old, I finally moved to Amman, Jordan, to finally meet my father. He didn't care if I was a girl or a boy. All he wanted was a healthy baby. At the first encounter, he took me in his arms and whispered in my ears, Allahu huwa salam, Allahu huwa al-mahabba, Allahu Akbar, which means, God is peace, God is love, God is the greatest. In saying these words, he drew the outline of my life, that I should make peace, love, and religion the cornerstones of my existence. 20 years later, at a desperate moment in my life's journey, I decided to change that course by joining the armed resistance forces. I was very determined and convinced that this is the only way to a dignified peace. I had so many dreams and aspirations for the future. I was just like any other girl my age anywhere else around the globe. But this conflict and the constant sorrow and loss that comes with it were more than enough to cloud my vision. I know now that I was too young to give up, but I was also too young to endure the kind of life I was living. I was too young to understand why. And that is the question. Why? It haunted me my whole life. I made this long, tedious journey from the Gaza Strip, Palestine, through Egypt to the United States to prove to myself, more than anyone else, that violence does not solve anything, that we need to understand each other and each other's side of the story, simply because no peace can be reached if each one of us is living in their own concrete bubble, convincing ourselves and convincing others that we are the ones who are standing on the right side of history and rejecting any other narrative. As much as I'm eager to seek the understanding from the Israeli side of the conflict, it is also extremely important for me and my fellow Palestinians that the USA, the United States of America, as a key player and a major force in the conflict equation, understand the Palestinian narrative and not the mainstream stereotypes that they are always exposed to, especially women who are not only subjected to Israeli occupation, which is not fun, but also occupied by the society, which is often, if not always, unfair to them. We also have stories. We have stories to tell you, stories of struggle and desperation, stories of hope and aspiration, love and longing for freedom. None of us were born to hold a gun. None of us were born to give up our lives. None of us were born under constant threat. Not in Palestine, not in South Africa, not in Ireland, not anywhere. But sometimes life pushes you to a corner where you have no other choice, or at least it makes you think that there is no other choice. I was lucky enough to realize before it's too late that there are many ways to peace. The dignified peace, where both sides make sacrifices and both sides ultimately benefit. What we need is to put aside all the narratives we've been told by our ancestors and make our own narrative, our own story, based on what we actually see, not what we've been told. I came here to tell you my story, not my great-grandparents' story, not my grandparents' story, not even my parents' story. I am Maisam Abumorr, an Arab Palestinian Muslim woman with olive skin, slight build, but big, huge dreams. I came here to tell you that F-16s, tanks, and armored vehicles will never, ever bring peace. I came here to tell you that the many innocent people who were killed throughout the conflict cannot be called collateral damage. They can't be called collateral damage. They are beloved sons and daughters. They are sisters and brothers. They are fathers and sons and mothers. They are human beings who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And most importantly, they are stories that were never told, cut short, ended prematurely. My project for change is about translating those stories to your mother tongue. The stories of normal young women who happen to live an abnormal reality where death and loss are more common than hot dogs are here. We want to change that. I want to translate their stories so that their voice can be heard around the world and not only confined to my homeland. Help us change it by listening to us, by getting to know us better, by accepting us as equal partners for peace. As Martin Luther King says, one day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but that is a means by which we arrive at the goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. Thank you very much.